She's stealing your power. That's what my inverter app said at 2:13 a.m. I was half asleep when my phone buzzed. I thought it was a system error. My solar setup had never failed me before. I built it myself after leaving the Army, clean, quiet, off-grid, no HOA control, no shared lines, just my roof panels, my battery wall, and the Texas sun doing its job. But the app showed a live draw, not from my house, from the side fence. I sat up in bed and opened the security cameras. Night vision kicked in, and there she was. Karen, standing in my driveway, her white Tesla parked halfway across my gravel. A thick orange extension cable ran from my exterior utility outlet, straight into her charging port. She looked around like she was doing something normal, like she owned the place. I didn't rush outside. I watched. She tapped her phone. The Tesla lights blinked. Charging started. From my power, from my batteries. I zoomed in on the screen. She wasn't even hiding it. She had opened my locked utility box. The small padlock I installed last year, cut clean. My jaw tightened. 3 months ago, she tried to fine me for unauthorized solar glare, said my panels were blinding the community. We don't even have an active HOA board anymore. It dissolved 2 years before I bought this land. But she kept acting like she ran the neighborhood. She once taped a fake notice to my door saying I couldn't park my truck in my own driveway because it looked military. It is military. I drove that truck home from base after my final deployment. I swung my legs off the bed and pulled on jeans. Not angry, not yet. Just steady. By the time I stepped onto my porch, her Tesla was already pulling 9.6 kilodollar from my system. That's not a small amount. That's half my stored battery. She saw me and smiled. Oh, good, she said like we were friends. You're awake. I walked down the steps slowly. Gravel crunched under my boots. You cut my lock, I said. She rolled her eyes. Relax. Solar is shared energy. It's not like you're using it all at night. Shared. On my private land. With my name on the deed. I don't share power, I said calmly. Especially not at 2 in the morning. She crossed her arms. The neighborhood voted that renewable energy benefits everyone. You have excess. My Tesla needs charge. It balances out. There is no neighborhood vote, I replied. There is no HOA. Her smile dropped for half a second, then came back stronger. There will be, she said. And when it's active again, you'll wish you cooperated. I glanced at the cable still plugged into my outlet. You planning to pay for that? She laughed. Actually laughed. Don't be dramatic. It's just electricity. Behind her, the Tesla screen glowed. Charging time remaining. 2 hours 11 minutes. I stepped closer to the outlet box. The cut padlock hung useless from the latch. You broke federal tampering laws, I said quietly. It's a plug, she snapped. Stop acting like I robbed a bank. I'm going to unplug it, I said. She stepped in front of me fast. If you touch my car, I'm calling the police. I paused. You're stealing my power. You're hoarding resources, she shot back. Typical. That word hung there. Typical. I let it slide. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Not to call anyone. To open another app. My solar control dashboard. I had installed a feature most people don't bother with. Surge Protection Override. It's meant for storm testing. Push the system to max safe output for 10 seconds to check stability. I never used it before. Karen watched me tapping. What are you doing? Checking system health, I said. She smirked. You can't scare me with tech talk. I'm not trying to scare you. I tapped the confirmation screen. Max output test, 10 seconds. My inverter hummed louder. The faint vibration under the concrete slab grew stronger. Her Tesla charging speed jumped. From 9.6 kilo to nevenest. Her eyes flicked to the car screen. What did you just do? Just testing something, I said calmly. The charging cable started buzzing softly. Not dangerous, not explosive, just heavy load. Her confident smile started to crack. You better not damage my vehicle, she said sharply. It's pulling what it asks for, I replied. System just giving maximum available. The Tesla screen flashed a warning. Charging irregularity detected. She spun toward the car. Stop it! She yelled. The inverter timer hit 8 seconds. 9. 10. The system automatically throttled back to normal levels. Silence returned to the driveway. Karen stared at her dashboard. Charging paused. Vehicle error. External supply instability. She turned slowly toward me. You did that on purpose. I shrugged. System test. Perfectly legal. Her face went red. My car's worth more than your house. That's nice, I said. She marched to the outlet and yanked the cable free. Then she pointed a finger at my chest. You think you're smart because you installed some panels? You're still under community authority. There is no authority, I said again. Show me paperwork. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone. I'm calling the HOA president. I folded my arms. Go ahead. She dialed. Put it on speaker. It rang. And rang. Then voicemail. She hung up fast. They're asleep, she snapped. At 2:30 in the morning? I asked. Shocking. Her breathing got heavier. You can't just overload someone's car? You can't cut someone's lock, I replied. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she did something bold. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. You don't belong here. There it was. Not about power. Not about solar. Something else. I bought this land legally, I said. Cash. She laughed under her breath. People like you always have some secret. I held her gaze. You're right, I said. She blinked. What? I do have a secret. Her eyes narrowed. What secret? I looked past her at the Tesla, at the cable still warm on the ground, at my security camera mounted above the garage. Everything tonight, I said softly, is already backed up. She followed my gaze slowly, up to the camera. Her face changed. You were recording? 4 angles, I said, including you cutting the lock. She froze. That's illegal, she said weakly. On my property? I asked. Silence. The wind moved through the trees behind us. Her confidence started slipping away, piece by piece. But she wasn't done. She straightened her shoulders. Fine, she said. If you want to play that way, we'll play that way. She walked back to her Tesla and opened the trunk. I watched carefully. She pulled out a folder. Thick, official-looking. She came back and slapped it against my chest. Emergency HOA reinstatement order, she said. Signed yesterday. I didn't even look down. By who? The County Compliance Board. Now that got my attention, because I knew someone on that board. Personally. Very personally. I slowly opened the folder. The paper looked real. Stamps, signatures, letterhead. It stated that due to community complaints, temporary authority had been granted to an interim HOA president. Her name was printed right there. Karen Whitmore, acting president. She smiled again. You see, she said sweetly, starting tomorrow, your solar system will be subject to review. And until then, you're required to provide excess energy to neighbors in need. In need? I repeated. My vehicle is at 14%. I looked at the paper longer, then at her, then back at the signature. Something was off. Very off. I closed the folder slowly. You sure you want to do this? I asked. She tilted her head. Do what? Push this. She leaned closer. You should have just shared. And that's when headlights turned into my driveway. Not a Tesla. Not a neighbor. A black county SUV? It rolled to a stop behind her car. Karen's smile faded. My phone buzzed again. One new notification. County Energy Grid Alert. External report filed. I didn't file anything. Karen turned slowly toward the SUV. 2 men stepped out. County badges on their jackets. She swallowed. You called them? She whispered. I looked at her calmly. No, I said. They called me. Karen's fingers tightened, around that folder like it was the only thing keeping her standing. The 2 county officers walked up the driveway with slow, steady steps. Not rushed, not confused, like they knew exactly why they were here. One of them looked at my outlet box first. The cut lock was still hanging there. Then he looked at the extension cable. Then at Karen. Evening, he said calmly. Or morning. Karen forced a smile. Perfect timing. I was just handling a compliance issue. The second officer glanced at her Tesla screen, still flashing a charging error. Compliance with what? He asked. She quickly opened the folder again and shoved the papers toward them. Emergency HOA reinstatement. Temporary authority granted. He refused to cooperate with community energy sharing. The first officer didn't even take the paper. Instead, he looked at me. Sir, did you file a grid instability report? No, I said. But my system logs automatically report surge, anomalies to the county grid monitor. Karen's head snapped toward me. You didn't say that. You didn't ask. The second officer stepped closer to the outlet box. He crouched down and touched the cut lock. This yours? He asked me. Yes. You cut it? He asked Karen. She straightened. It was necessary access under Emergency Energy Redistribution Authority. Both officers slowly looked at her. Ma'am, the first one said, there is no emergency redistribution program in this county. Her lips parted. There is under temporary HOA control. The second officer finally took the folder from her hands. He flipped through the pages quietly. 1 page, 2 pages. He paused at the signature line. Then he looked up at her. Where did you get this signed? County Compliance Board, she said quickly. Yesterday? He turned the paper around and pointed at the seal. This is last year's seal format. Silence. Karen blinked. What? We updated the seal 6 months ago, he said. This version is expired. Her confidence cracked again. It must be a clerical error, she said fast. The board moved slow. The first officer stood now. His tone changed slightly. Ma'am, the compliance board doesn't issue nighttime. Emergency authority. For private energy seizure. Private energy seizure? Those words hit hard. Karen shook her head. That's not what this is. He's hoarding power. I spoke calmly. My system is off-grid. It does not connect to public supply. The first officer nodded slightly. We can see that. Karen looked between all three of us. He admitted he overloaded my vehicle, she said suddenly. He damaged my Tesla. I ran a system test, I said. Standard function. The vehicle chose to pull max input. The second officer checked his tablet. Vehicle error log shows irregular external draw before system throttle, he said. No damage reported. Karen's breathing got sharper. You're taking his side, she said. No, ma'am, the first officer replied. We're taking the data's side. For a second, I almost smiled. She wasn't used to that. She was used to loud voices winning. She tried one more angle. He's intimidating the neighborhood, she said. Former military. Installs high-powered equipment. It's unsafe. The first officer looked at me again. You former service? Yes, I answered. He gave a small nod. Thank you for that. Karen's jaw tightened. That has nothing to do with this, she snapped. Actually, the officer said calmly, it explains why his system is built to code. That one stung her. The second officer stood and held up the cut lock. Ma'am, cutting a secured utility, access point without owner. Consent is criminal tampering. It was community access, she shouted. There is no active HOA, he replied firmly. She pointed at the papers again. You're looking at it. He held the page up closer to the SUV headlights. Then he flipped to the last sheet. Then he froze. His eyes narrowed. Interesting, he muttered. Karen's face went pale. What? He turned the paper so the first officer could see. At the bottom, under the signature line, was a printed name. County Compliance Director Mark Reynolds. The first officer slowly exhaled. That's not possible, he said quietly. Karen tried to laugh. What now? The officer looked at her carefully. Mark Reynolds retired 8 months ago. Silence swallowed the driveway. Karen didn't speak, didn't blink. The second officer kept reading. And his signature, he added, is mirrored. Mirrored? She whispered. Copied and flipped, he said. Likely scanned. The wind moved again through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Karen's entire posture changed. Less control, less certainty. I didn't create that, she said quickly. It was sent to me. By who? The first officer asked. She hesitated. Anonymous board member, she said. The second officer lowered the papers. Ma'am, forging county authorization is a felony. That word hit harder than anything else tonight. Felony. She stepped back slowly. I didn't forge anything. The first officer looked at me. Sir, do you want to press charges for tampering and attempted energy theft? Karen spun toward me fast. You wouldn't, she said. Not angry now, afraid. I held her eyes. You told me I don't belong here, I said quietly. Remember? Her mouth opened slightly. I was frustrated, she said. You cut my lock at 2 in the morning. You overloaded my car. You plugged into my system. The second officer stepped between us slightly. Let's keep this calm. Karen suddenly pointed at my security camera. He said he recorded everything. That's invasion of privacy. The first officer shook his head. On his property, that's legal. Her shoulders slumped a little. Then something changed in her face. A flicker. Like she remembered something. She pulled her phone out again. You think this is over? She said. She tapped a contact and hit speaker. It rang once. Then a voice answered immediately. Yeah? Karen swallowed. They're here. The voice on the phone sounded annoyed. All ready? The officers exchanged a look. Who is this? The first officer asked. Karen didn't answer. The man on the phone spoke again. Did you use the revised template? Karen's face drained of color. What? She whispered. The new HOA letterhead, the voice said. I told you not to use the old seal. The driveway went completely still. The second officer slowly pulled out his own phone. Sir, he said calmly toward Karen's device, this is County Energy Compliance. Identify yourself. Click. The call ended. Karen's hand started shaking. The first officer looked at her very carefully. You're not acting alone, are you? She didn't answer. Didn't move. Headlights suddenly appeared at the end of the road. Another vehicle turning toward my driveway. Not a county SUV this time. A black pickup. Tinted windows. It rolled closer and stopped behind the county vehicle. Engine still running. Karen stared at it. And for the first time tonight, she looked scared of someone other than me. The black pickup didn't turn its engine off. It just sat there. Low rumble. Headlights still on. The county officers both shifted slightly. Not nervous, but alert. Karen looked like she wanted to disappear. The driver door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out. Mid-40s, clean jacket, confident walk. The kind of guy who thinks he never loses. He didn't look at me first. He looked at Karen. You couldn't handle one house? He asked, calm but sharp. Her voice came out small. They showed up too fast. The first county officer stepped forward. Sir, identify yourself. The man glanced at the badge, then gave a polite half-smile. Daniel Harper, he said. Community Development Consultant. Consultant. At 3 in the morning. For who? The officer asked. For future residents, he replied smoothly. This neighborhood is about to change. I watched him carefully. He finally looked at me. You must be the solar guy. I own this land, I said. He nodded once. Yes, for now. Karen swallowed hard. You said the papers would work. He shot her a cold look. They would have, if you didn't panic. The second officer stepped closer. Sir, we're investigating forged county documents. Harper didn't even flinch. Forgery is a strong word, he said lightly. The compliance director listed retired 8 months ago, the officer replied. Harper's smile faded just a little. That can be corrected, he said. Karen turned to him. Corrected? You told me everything was approved. He leaned closer to her and whispered, but in the quiet driveway we still heard it. I told you pressure works. Not panic. The first officer's tone hardened. Sir, are you involved in drafting these documents? Harper looked at him calmly. I advise communities on restructuring opportunities. By cutting locks? The officer asked. Harper didn't answer that. Instead, he looked around my property. The panels, the battery wall, the open land behind my house. Do you know what this area will be worth in 6 months? He asked me. I didn't buy it to sell it, I replied. That's the thing, he said quietly. You won't have to. Karen looked confused. What does that mean? He ignored her. The second officer's tablet beeped softly. He checked it. Then his eyebrows lifted. Sir, he said to Harper, are you connected to Lone Star Grid Expansion? Harper paused. Just for a second. That's a private company, he said carefully. Yes, the officer replied. A company that filed a pre-acquisition infrastructure proposal for this block last week. Karen looked between them. Pre-acquisition? I felt something shift in my chest. The officer continued reading. Proposal includes solar grid consolidation, mandatory integration, property buyouts, Harper finally looked directly at me. You built a nice system, he said calmly. But when grid expansion hits, independent setups get absorbed. Absorbed? I repeated. Unified, he corrected. Karen stepped back slowly. You said we'd control the HOA. He gave her a flat look. Temporary leverage. Her face went pale. You used me? No, he said. You volunteered. The first officer stepped closer to Harper. Sir, did you encourage this woman to impersonate county authority? Harper's voice cooled. Careful with accusations. The officer didn't move. Careful with answers. The black pickup engine was still running. I looked at Karen. All this, I said quietly, was never about charging your Tesla. She shook her head slowly, realization hitting hard. They said if we prove community instability, she whispered. The county fast-tracks oversight. Harper didn't deny it. The second officer looked at his partner. This is bigger. Yes, Harper said calmly. Much bigger than a cutlock. The first officer straightened. Sir, we're going to need you to step away from the vehicle. Harper sighed like this was a waste of his time. You don't understand, he said. This expansion is already approved at state level. Then you won't mind answering questions, the officer replied. Harper looked at Karen again. Disappointed. You couldn't even manage one veteran, he muttered. She flinched. He started walking back toward his truck. The first officer moved quickly. Sir, stop! Harper stopped, but didn't turn around. You really want to slow down a state-backed energy project over a driveway argument? He asked. The words hung heavy. State-backed. Karen looked like she might faint. I stepped forward slightly. You tried to scare me off my land, I said. You tried to make it look like I broke rules that don't exist. Harper turned his head just enough to look at me over his shoulder. You were supposed to sell quietly, he said. I never planned to sell. You will, he replied calmly. Everyone does? The second officer's tablet beeped again. He stared at the screen, then at me. Sir, your system auto-uploaded. Tonight's footage to the county. Server when the surge triggered. I nodded. That's correct. He swallowed slightly. It also tagged abnormal external draw before the surge. Karen's head snapped up. And? She asked. The officer looked at Harper. External draw didn't start at 2:13. Silence. It started yesterday afternoon, he said. My stomach tightened. What? I asked. He turned the screen toward me. Log entries. Multiple sessions. Short bursts of energy siphon. Different times. Karen shook her head fast. I was only here tonight. The officer zoomed in. Device signature matches a portable transfer unit, he said. Harper's face finally lost its calm mask. That's impossible, he said quietly. The first officer looked at him sharply. You seem very sure. The second officer kept reading. Unit ID registered to Lone Star Grid Expansion. Testing Division. The wind felt colder suddenly. Karen whispered. Testing Division? Harper's jaw tightened. I looked at him carefully. You weren't charging her Tesla tonight? I said slowly. He didn't answer. The officer finished reading. Someone's been pulling power from this property for 36 hours. My voice stayed calm. Without my permission. Karen stared at Harper. You said this was symbolic, she whispered. Just to show access. He finally turned fully around. And for the first time, he looked cornered. This was supposed to be quiet, he said under his breath. The first officer stepped closer. Sir, are you admitting unauthorized grid testing on private property? Harper's eyes flicked to the running pickup. Calculating. Then he did something none of us expected. He smiled again. Check the county permit database, he said calmly. Tomorrow morning. Why? The officer asked. Because by then, Harper replied, this land won't legally be independent anymore. My phone buzzed again. New notification. County land status update pending review. I didn't file anything. Karen stared at my screen. What does that mean? She whispered. I looked at Harper. He held my gaze and said one sentence that made everything worse. You're not just fighting an HOA, he said. You're standing in the way of a state energy takeover. I stood still, letting his words sink in. The wind carried a low hum from my solar panels. The county officers exchanged glances, tense but alert. Karen's face was pale, lips trembling. She had finally realized she was just a pawn. "You lied to me," she whispered, voice cracking. "You said we'd control the HOA." Harper shook his head slowly. "Temporary leverage, Karen. You were never in charge." Karen's phone buzzed in her hand. She ignored it. She looked around at everyone, me, the officers, the black pickup looming behind, and for the first time, she didn't have a single confident word. I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm. "Everything you tried to do tonight, cutting my lock, draining my power, threatening false authority, is recorded. Every second. On my cameras, on your phone, and on the county servers automatically." Karen flinched. Her eyes darted to the officers. The first officer nodded slowly. "Ma'am, based on these recordings, you're facing charges for criminal tampering, attempted theft, and impersonating authority." She staggered back. You can't." "You did," the officer interrupted. "And now it's on record." Harper's expression finally softened, but only slightly. "This neighborhood is changing, but some rules still apply. Yours just got enforced." I stepped forward and picked up the cut padlock, holding it like a trophy. "I didn't fight for this land to have people steal from me at night." Karen's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the gravel. Her phone slipped from her hand. The county officers moved in, carefully, and escorted her toward the SUV. I didn't touch her. I didn't need to. Justice had arrived quietly, legally, perfectly. Harper turned toward me one last time. "Your system's impressive. Most people don't survive a night like this without panicking." "I'm not most people," I said. He nodded. "Good, because tomorrow, when the state sees these recordings, you'll be untouchable. And any attempt to seize your land, dead in its tracks." The black pickup engine rumbled to life. Harper climbed in. The headlights faded down the long driveway. The county SUVs followed. I walked back to my porch. The panels above me shimmered in the early dawn light. My battery wall hummed quietly, untouched, safe. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. I ignored it. The sun was coming up. My family's home, my land, my power, everything I fought for was still mine. I looked down at the gravel driveway. Tesla gone, Karen gone, and in the calm of that quiet morning, I whispered to no one in particular, "You don't steal from a veteran on his own land." And for the first time that night, I felt completely free. Justice had been served. Land secure, family safe, power intact. And somewhere far away, Karen would never forget the night she tried and failed to take what wasn't hers.